This conference will now be recorded.
All right, this is a go-to meeting of the Clatsop County Comprehensive Plan Update for the Lewis and Clark Olney-Woluski Planning Area Citizens Advisory Committee on August 27th, 2020 at 6 p.m. And I, Mike Magyar, the Clark CAC Chair, call this meeting to order. So let's do some introductions. Whoever's here, I'll introduce myself. I'm the chair. I agreed to do this, so I'm doing it. And I live out on Youngs River Road, south of Tucker Creek, up on Battle Creek Lane. And I'm at the top of a hill overlooking the great Youngs River Valley, and I'm surrounded by a bunch of beautiful timberland, some of it owned by Nygaard, some of it owned by whoever the du jour timber baron is of the week. And it's awesome where I live, and I love it. And I hope to hear from everybody. Anybody else want to stick their neck out?
I'm Gail Hendrickson, Community Development Director.
I'm Julia Decker, Clatsop County Planning Manager.
Jim Nikes, member.
This is Lam Kwang. I'm the new Planning Commissioner out here on Lewis and Clark Road.
Who's DB? Hi, Pam. I'll show my face. I'll show my name. All right, we got Pamela Webb. Pam, I was just doing some introductions. No? You got to turn your mic on. There you go.
Is it just you and me?
No, we've got Gail Hendrickson, Julia Decker, Lamb, Jim Nikes, and a lurker.
Well, we have someone who's choosing not to identify themselves with the initials DB, so we do have a member of the public.
All right, well, the introductions have been made, I suppose. Pam, do you have can you see the agenda?
I can. I also have a hard copy of it next to me, but I can see the agenda on my screen.
All right, very good. Okie dokie, y'all. Let's look at the review of the meeting summary. So I'm going to scroll down here. And those people who were at the meeting, it looks like the only person that was, let's see, Jim. So let's see. Does anybody has anyone had a chance to review the minutes of the last meeting? Jim, do you want to approve those?
Certainly, I approve them.
All right, sounds good. All right, so we got that done. All right, public comment and input. I'm going to turn this over to either Julia or Gail to sort of jump in and see where we're at here. And I'll scroll down to that bright yellow page. There it is. Let's go.
Well, if there is public comment or input, this is a moment for the public to respond. If somebody is present who would like to provide public comment, then we'll be delighted to take it. If somebody is in the background who's having problems with audio and is having problems with their mic, they can use the chat box, and if Gail wants to show where the chat is on the screen, up in the right hand corner there's a sort of a conversation bubble, and if you hit the chat box, you can enter your information down below. It says enter your message, and you can speak to us that way if you're having problems with your audio. So not seeing anything, so I guess we're ready to move forward.
All right, I need to go back up and look and see. So no public comments. All right, let's go to the review of Goal 5 worksheets and topics. And let's talk about wetlands and riparian corridors.
Okay, well, we kind of gave you a little more material this month than we had the previous month. Wetlands are a huge topic, and they provide so much in the way of flood storage and water supply and water quality, and they're part of the food web support. They're wildlife and fish habitat. They are aesthetics and recreation and education for so many people, and they are also imperative to rare and endangered species. So they get a lot of attention. So one of the things we had wanted to do was kind of focus a little bit this evening on the Goal 5 Natural Resource Worksheet, which I think, let's see, it's the oversized worksheets that we sent out to you quite a while ago. So I
Sheet
kind
9.
of wanted, we're on the wetlands policies. We have not started that. We were working on the energy sources and the mineral and aggregate last time. So this was going to be the wetlands meeting. One thing I'll let you know, we're going to circle back around to this in the spring. This is just more of, oh, this is a terrible pun. This is just more to get your feet wet this evening. I'm so sorry. I couldn't help it.
That's terrible. Nice
I
work,
know.
Julia.
I know. It's awful. I'm so sorry. But right, I couldn't help it. So this is the introduction. Sort of take a look at what the goals and policies are. If you can respond to them this evening, that's fabulous. We also were hoping to get an idea if there are some. We have inventoried wetlands listed in the comprehensive plan in Goal 5, and we kind of need to look at those and see, are they still where they were? Are there more? Are some of them gone? Because they're dynamic, they change. So we wanted to look at the existing policies and see if there were any new wetlands that we needed to know about. We also were talking in some of the other committees about identifying riparian corridors. And one of the things that became immediately obvious was that we don't have a definition of riparian corridors. I suspect a lot of us think we know what it is, but we weren't all working from the same definition, and that's a problem. So when we come back to this, we probably will have a definition for you long about April or May, or maybe it's March, I'm not sure, I don't remember now. But maybe one of the things we want to do is March, is it? Okay. Maybe one of the things that we want to do is talk about what we envision as a riparian corridor, and are there some that we need to list? Are there some issues surrounding riparian corridors that we should be aware of? But we can start with just what have we got, what's already there, and is there anything missing? And with that, I'd love to have you focus on the worksheet.
Okay, so I'm looking at, let me see, somewhat different. Okay, do you have a policy 3 on your sheet there? You do. Okay, it's just different. All right.
So the county will, this is policy 1, basically, the county will protect identified significant freshwater wetlands for which no conflicting uses have been identified from incompatible uses.
Boy.
So we talk about significant wetlands. There's 3 different categories of wetlands, And you keep talking about significant wetlands, which are at a very different level than the indentation in a yard or a field or anything else that they call a wetland, that once in 12 years will have a mud puddle or something in it. So we have these wetlands inventories that mean absolutely nothing because you take them in, you take them out. The feds are the ones who control it. They'll take you out of a wetland inventory, and then you go in and get your permits from you guys. You fill in the non-wetland areas in your inventory. Then along comes Dan Carey and slaps you with a fine because he takes a Google aerial from 2012, one of 7 photographs, and which was a more than significant rain event prior to that, and one of 7, and he uses his science from the aerial picture and finds you for filling a wetland. So wetlands inventories mean absolutely nothing.
Jim, I'm sorry, I missed that. You said, so wetlands inventory, and then it trailed off. I didn't hear you.
Wetlands inventories mean nothing. Your inventories mean absolutely nothing. They're only thing they are for is to entrap the public, and you may think I'm just sitting on a pedestal and talking, but that's exactly the only thing they can be used for, because you have studies from the federal government 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and everybody changed their wetlands maps, except for they're not really changed because they really don't mean anything. They're for, according to the Division of State Lands, they're for some just reference only. So what somebody needs to do is make a real wetlands inventory where you can actually know when you're going to be in trouble and when you're not going to be in trouble.
Mike, could I make a request? It looks to me, you and I are the only 2 people I can see on the screen.
Yes.
And I guess I'm accustomed in GoToMeeting to have even the people who didn't want to show themselves or who didn't want to be seen. I could see their names, so I don't even know, but I assume that was Jim Nikas. Am I right?
Yes,
Right,
that's correct.
it highlights in a box when you're talking. If you look up there and on your left-hand side, the JN is now surrounded by a box.
Gotcha.
But I'll say who I am every time if that's necessary.
Okay, I'm sorry, Jim, I didn't see that.
No problem.
But the issue is that I don't know who's here.
Okay. Also, Commissioner Webb, if you look at the top of your screen, there should be a little box that will say view everyone, who's talking, active cameras, hide everyone. It's a view button.
Gotcha.
So if you click on everyone, you should be able to see all of us.
I can't. It's just not showing me.
If you click the little chevrons, you don't get a little dialog box.
Mm-mm.
Are you using Windows 95?
Oh my God, no, I have a Mac.
Well, that's
You're
the
using
problem.
a Mac, is that? This is Julia. So you're using a Mac, is that right,
Yeah.
Commissioner?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah,
I don't know. Perhaps it's not interfacing well with this program.
It's not a problem. From now on, we just announce our name before we start on one of my diatribes, I guess.
Well, that's okay, because actually what I'm seeing, I do see in the upper left-hand corner that it identifies who's talking. So that's great. No, I'm sorry. I'm on this app, GoToMeeting, like several times a day. So I guess it's a function of who's controlling the photos or whatever. So, okay, I'll be quiet.
So
Actually, I'm not going to be quiet for long.
okay.
Gail, isn't there, I thought, looking back in the history, that in 2017, the county did some work on the wetlands issue and had a wetlands advisory committee?
Yes, there was a wetlands ad hoc advisory committee that was formed, and it was formed much earlier, I believe around 2014 or 2015 perhaps. And in 2017, they brought forward 4 recommendations to the Board of Commissioners at that time for their consideration. And at that point, there was really no agreement or direction given to staff that I understand. Staff also changed around that point, and so the effort just kind of fizzled out.
Okay. But
And
isn't there an official DSL wetlands map?
Means nothing.
The state has, for a long time, they worked off the National Wetlands Inventory, which is a very broad look at potential wetland areas and not very refined at all. They recently completed a statewide wetlands inventory that takes the data from the National Wetlands Inventory and then refines it a bit by looking at soil types, incorporating information from local wetland inventories that have been approved. And so that has refined it a bit. But again, it's still very much a broad brush. The really the only way to determine whether or not you have wetlands on your property is to have a delineation done and have specifically for your property, and then have that approved by Department of State Lands.
Wow.
So why doesn't the county then require that? Why do you issue permits and allow us to fill the non-wetlands inventory and then have a member of the Division of State Lands come down and, like I say, fine you and convict you on an aerial photo?
So if I understood your question is, why do we not require a delineation for all properties?
Correct.
Okay. I think part of it is probably the cost that it would.
There we go.
And we would get significant criticism and pushback because I don't know how much those delineations cost. I think that you've probably had some done, Jim, so you could better address that.
They're between $10,000 and $20,000. It costs between $10,000 and $20,000, and like I say, it just seems ironic to me that we have inventory maps that literally, and I'm not exaggerating whatsoever, you can have a field that you can see no difference in vegetation, you can see no difference in anything on the property, and you can be convicted from a Google aerial photo. And that's exactly what happened to me on the Ritalin field. So if we're going to be able to do that, if you're going to issue permits, shouldn't there be, I mean, like I say, like I told Dan Carey, is this, so we have wetlands maps just to trick us? Because if you have something on your wetlands map, if you have a wetlands map that shows wetlands, then it's automatically, yes, you have to get a delineation, but they're for reference and only. But if they're say wetlands, they're wetlands. But if they don't say they're wetlands, they still could be wetlands. So what I'm getting at here, if we're going to talk about inventories and everything else, why would you possibly have an inventory that means absolutely nothing?
Hey, Jim, I mean, I get what you're saying, but you got to understand that the Clatsop County Web Maps is a cartoon. It's got disclaimers written all over it. There's nothing that it can provide except a general overview. And like any other land development project, no one's going to use the Clatsop County tax lot lines and the aerial imagery to delineate the land that they're going to develop. They hire a professional surveyor to come through and delineate the line. Yeah, there's a cost to it, but I mean, just because they show a line doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean anything.
We're not talking a survey, Mike. We're talking a wetlands.
What's the difference between a wetland? What's the difference?
What do you mean? What's the difference?
You're talking about this web map that's in front of you that has green areas, blue areas. Each of those areas is a specific polygon that represents a certain type of wetland feature with its own restrictions. For anyone to look at that and make any kind of economic decision based on this map, I think is naive.
So
Who would do that?
So
Who would do that?
You're just proving my point, Mike. Then why is it required that everybody gets a delineation? Why? Because it's economically unfeasible. So there you go.
Why not just get a delineation just to cover yourself?
Well, Gail just told me it's economically unfeasible for certain people.
Well, that's the problem of doing land development, isn't it? It's not for everybody. It's you know.
But we're arguing. You're arguing something that isn't what we're even talking about. We're talking about inventories. If the inventories are not correct, why do we have the inventories? In other words, do away with them. Require everybody to have a delineation.
And this is Julia speaking. So I guess I see what Mike and Jim are both saying. And it's true that web maps is it's a tool and it's a generalization, and it kind of gives you an idea about what's on the ground and what you should be looking for and what you should be watching out for. And we in the office try to tell people, hey, this is showing here, it might be there as well, or this is where your property line appears to be, but it's, you know, it could be off 10 feet or more. So you don't want to use this as the be all end all, but it kind of gives you an idea about things to be aware of. The other thing is that we use the wetland overlay, or pardon me, layer. It's not an overlay, it's not adopted. The county doesn't actually regulate the wetlands, but if you're going to be working in wetlands, then we're going to need approval in the form of a letter or some sort of document from the Oregon Department of State Lands that shows that they've signed off on it or they've approved it in some way. If you're just developing like near the wetlands, then we still have to provide the state with a wetland notice that says that somebody's going to be in it within a certain distance, or they're developing over here and the wetlands say they're over there, and then maybe that's where Jim is running into trouble, because the tool, again, the tool is gross in the lines that it draws. They're large lines. They cut the swaths, they cut things off. But we're still required to provide notice to the state. And I guess if you think there are wetlands close by, maybe you do need to get a delineation, but it isn't the county that requires it. And it's really a good idea to check with the state and see if they require it before you start bringing in truckloads of stuff. But yeah, it's true. It's expensive. It's terribly expensive. And I don't know if I'm just trying to provide some background to you about how this works in the office, where we're providing information, but we're not actually regulating the wetlands. We're notifying DSL that there's going to be development in the area of wetlands. And we don't actually have a setback that we use, like if you're going to be within 30 feet or if you're going to be within 50 feet or something like that. And I'm wondering if you want to provide us with some ideas about what we might consider to be a good setback. We're asking that of DSL as well. One other thing I wanted to mention regarding that committee from 2017, the agenda summary and that committee's recommendations is found on starting on page 82 of your packet. So that information is there if you wanted to take a look at it. I think there's some minutes. Oh yeah, Gail's got the minutes up on the board's minutes from that period too. So you have the background. You can see where the committee got to and where they stopped. I'll stop talking now.
Thanks, Julia, for that explanation. That makes complete sense. So just to reiterate, you're saying that the county doesn't require a permit, but you're required to let the state know if somebody is in an area that may impact, or that their activities may impact a wetland, and you use the web maps as a general planning overview to make those decisions.
About when to notify the state and
Yes.
when not to, yes. And if you're going to be in an area where there are wetlands, like you're going to be saying, I'm going to be filling here, and it's, you know, obviously within, you know, a couple of feet one way or the other or in, then we're going to tell you, you should contact the state first before you come in here and try to get a development permit. And if you're going to work in the wetlands at all, then we need to see something from the state that gives you approval to do it.
That sounds reasonable. That doesn't sound like a problem at all. I mean, at least you're not requiring anyone to do something. You're having them go straight to the state, which are the overlords of wetlands, and you got to throw, you got to throw your cards down in front of them. That's brutal, but that's life. I don't know. Sounds like a good idea to me. I'd like to see an application through Web Maps that requires each individual wetlands delineation to be loaded into Clatsop County web maps with a date, so that people can see what's been done and where. I think that that's a really good idea, much more than and it might flesh out some of those areas that people are concerned about. Is that required?
No, that's not something that's required. I'm not sure. I think, and Gail, did we ask if that's something that we could even see on the state's website?
I don't know if we've talked to the state about it. I know internally we've had discussions maybe 2 years ago about doing that. And I think we were working with GIS, but it was at that point, GIS had so many other projects that we never followed through with it.
I mean, from what I've seen in the land development world, quite often people who come to Clatsop County and are doing these kinds of delineations are mapping their data and can deliver their polygons in CAD form in a state plane coordinate, which would easily load into your system without any trouble at all. I mean, I see these polygons all the time. So if I've got access to them, you guys should easily, maybe, I don't know how, in your permit process, maybe have someone ship it over to you. It's certainly not a huge deal. I mean, it's all ready to go. You just have to attribute it, and your CAD person probably gets 50 of these and takes a couple days to enter them. I don't know. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I think it's a very good idea as well, and I agree with it. One thing that we do see a lot of is a delineation may have been done 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. They're good for 5 years, and
Yep.
people will come in with a copy of a copy of a copy.
Yeah.
And because they've purchased the property from someone else and may not have access to those polygons.
And also, yeah, that's true. And I can't tell you how many times someone has made me go take an old Carl Feste map from 4.5 years ago, where he located some wetland flags that are on just some random coordinate system, where they're like, well, this is where the wetland is because Carl located it, but it's not georeferenced. It's not real snazzy, and so what happens is you've got these landowners that are having to pay extra fees to locate their wetlands that were already located once. And if we could just put those in a database, I think it would save, it would just save a bunch of people a bunch of money from what I've seen. It's just unnecessary costs. And these are small land developers, mom and pops, and they've got little stuff. I don't know. That's what I think. All right, so maybe for policy 1, we can say that the goal hasn't been met. So we go on and talk about policy 2.
So a 10-acre site with wetland site 6, which is on the map, shall be provided for gravel extraction. And then there were some questions about that one, and I think that Gail is getting to that now. Is that not now inside the seaside city limits or cities? Cities control? I'm not sure.
No, not the entire thing. I wanted to bring up the map, but if you give me a moment, please.
Sure.
Okay, so generally wetland 6 is the area that's south of the mill pond in Seaside. So it's this area here. And you can see where there's even some lake and wetland zoning.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got, oh, zoning. All right. I'm just trying to duplicate your layers here. I've got my web maps open.
So one thing I would say about the lake and wetland zoning, and maybe I should have made this disclaimer earlier, we have lake and wetland zoning, which is it's actually an overlay that is one of our zones that the county regulates. It and the National Wetlands Inventory and the statewide wetlands inventory are not the same things. The state is regulating the wetlands layers, the statewide and the national wetlands inventories. But on the Clatsop Plains, we have a lake and wetland zone, and all of these overlap. They do not have the same boundaries. But the lake and wetland zone itself, which the county regulates, just like it does the RA1 and the AF, is a non-development zone. It's a conservation zone, and it's got 50-foot setback from it. So you can see that what is technically Site 6 in the county's zoning appears mostly to be in the lake and wetland zone, so it has that protection. Now, I cannot speak to what's going on in the city of Seaside.
Well, that's have you guys answered that question? Whether the TNC's got it?
Yeah, the Nature Conservancy has a portion of it. The question that we have not answered yet is whether or not there's still a 10-acre gravel site there.
Gail, I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you just said. Could you repeat it?
Yes, so the Nature Conservancy has purchased or received a portion of what's been identified as Wetland 6, so this parcel here, but there are still some other parcels.
Wait, are you talking Nature Conservancy or the North Coast Land Conservancy?
North Coast Land Conservancy, sorry.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
But there are still some private ownership parcels that have not been transferred. So the question that we have is whether or not that extraction site, that 10-acre extraction site, is still relevant. We don't know where it was. We don't know if it's still there, if it may have moved. We just haven't been able to find the answers to those questions.
Interesting. And this is a big deal because why?
Because if it is something that was in existence prior to the comprehensive plan being adopted and it's still in existence today, you need to acknowledge that. Otherwise, you run the potential of, making them a non-conforming use, and then that creates additional problems.
That's a
Why
big chunk of land.
why don't we know, Gail?
Primarily because this was something that happened over 40 years ago when they identified this, and staff has not made the effort, I'll be frank, to dig all the old files, if we still have them, out of the Boynton vaults and to go through all the boxes to see if we could figure out why.
Whoa. So the issue is what? Was there gravel extraction going on at the time the 1980 comp plan was done? Is that the issue?
Well, we know there was, because I think it's a safe assumption that that is why this policy was specifically put into this plan. It's very specific, where you see that many of the other policies are very broad.
Right.
You'll see this in more detail when we get to policy 3. So there was a very specific reason it was put into the plan. Unfortunately, because of the passage of time and just lack of time for staff to be able to do that in-depth research, and if we could even find the answer, we get a lot of questions from the different groups who have all asked us the same question. Well, is the 10-acre site still there? And we just don't know the answer at this point. So, I mean, we either make the assumption that it is still there and we leave that policy in, or we make an assumption that the site is gone and it can be taken out. In all of our conversations so far with the various CACs, we've not had anybody who historically has had any reference or knowledge of this site, and so even locally we're not, pulling in institutional memory.
So isn't it possible for us to get on a horse and go out there and look at it?
You cut my horse budget this year. Yeah, well, we don't even know where on the map it is. We know, so let me pull up the map.
Yeah.
So this is what they identified as Site 6.
Yeah.
So yeah, we could definitely go tromp around out there and see if we find anything.
Or
frankly,
take a look at the parcel ownership.
Well, we know that there's all sorts of different ownership. So we know Stimson has some ownership out there. We know the Land Conservancy has some. There's private property owners. So, it's not that we're not trying to answer the question, but this has been, I will be honest with you, in the scheme of all the things that we've been working on, this has been, at least for me, a very low priority to do that research or do the field work. So I do apologize for that, because that's just sheer laziness on my part. So
no, I happen to know that you're not lazy. You're just overworked.
I was thinking that maybe Mr. Nikas might remember.
Remember the wetlands there?
No, remember the gravel extraction down south of Seaside in that area that we're talking about. We're calling it Site 6, but it's the mapping is so poor. Do you remember that from 40 years ago?
I believe that's where the old alder mill used to be. I believe they did extract something there many, many, many years ago, and then he actually used it for a log pond for the coal alder mill, which is the blue right there, over towards that little there, which is that. There used to be an alder mill on the tax lot just to the west of that, and I believe it's condominiums now, or part of the city of Seaside. But that's, I believe they used to extract there. And I think that's probably the only one that they ever did that with the river rock type stuff. There's one in the Halem, and they used to do it a little bit out in Lewis and Clark, but that's about it. This is that's a man-made created giant pond or wetland or whatever you want to call it.
The Chapman Ponds?
Yes.
Huh. We're trying to get the aerial photos on. I don't think it's going to work. But there's our pelican.
Have you guys tried to do some deed research on those parcels to see what comes up?
Not yet. It's not something, as Gail said, it's not been the highest priority to try and figure out exactly where that is. We were really hoping for some historical knowledge.
Right. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad do you need to know?
Well, we should have it be accurate. It's important to be accurate. So if we have to go pull deeds, and I don't know if we'd find it with deeds, but we've got clues. I mean, Jim's providing some clues right now. That helps.
Yeah, we'll move it up on our priority list so that we can get that question answered.
Is there like somebody's got an economic interest in the gravel, and if that was a use back in the day, then people who have interest in mining gravel should be able to mine it? Is that what you're saying?
Well, right. It would be a use that should be protected.
Well, then we should go for it. Go back. And so you're saying 80s?
70s, maybe earlier.
70s?
You have to remember the comp plan, all the research that went into the comp plan actually happened in the 70s. We didn't get to adopt the comp plan until 1979, and then they prepared the zoning ordinance after they had the comprehensive plan and the community plans in place. So that adoption actually came in 1980, in September of 1980. So all of this work to provide this document that we have adopted and we're using as a zoning ordinance in 1980 all happened in the 70s. Our geohazard stuff, everything is from the early to mid 70s.
So can you put you say you can't put the aerial up there, or you can't?
It does not appear to be working. Although maybe the base map, one of the base maps would work.
I can't get your aerial image to come in either.
I'm just wondering if Gail, could you try the base map? Yeah, that one. That Esri image, see if that maybe works.
There you go.
Okay, that's an older image. I have no idea what the era is on that. It's not as good as the current ones that we're using and that apparently are not available this evening. But anyway, that gives you at least an idea.
So, and you're not talking about the one just to the north that's in the seaside city limits. You're talking about this smaller one that's behind the Shiloh, I guess that is.
Well, we're not sure. I mean, I'm wondering if
the one to the north used to be, like I say, that was coal lumber, and they went out of business probably in 88 or 89, but they were there for several decades, and I believe that's the one that was the mining site.
Oh.
The one just to the north of that, right inside the city limits. That's the one that was the extraction site. This one down below looks like they were just beaver dams. It looks like to me more than anything else. But this real big one up there was where they actually did extract river rock back in the late 60s and early 70s. And I can't remember which outfit it was. It might have been McLean. It might have been what the hell is her name? Shoot. It was McLean was the owner. Anyway, yeah, I can't remember right now.
So one thing I'm noticing here in a survey that Scott Cooter did back in 2009, I'm seeing that the west edge of the parcel And I believe it's a 70-acre parcel. Is that right? Is that what you're saying? I think I'm looking at the same one. There is on the west side of it, in between Roosevelt Road and the west edge of the parcel, there's an abandoned SP&S railroad grade, and it would be my guess that if you were going to be doing any type of rock work, you're probably going to want to dump it on a railroad car, and you'd probably want to be right next to it. I'm guessing.
That makes a lot of sense.
So, and I've, there's a map right here I can look at. If you bring up the survey, it's Clatsop County Survey B-12510. And I don't know, that might, if you get a geologist out there and dig around and see if you can find some gravel, that would be the first place I'd look. And it's just to the south of a pond. It's about, I would say it's about a third of the way to the halfway down the west side. If I'm looking at the same property.
What is there a road name that you can give me?
Okay, so let's go here. So you see Roosevelt Drive and how there's that little pregnant bump right there in the middle, just to the south of Mill Ponds Park. You're going down Roosevelt and it does a little bump, and then there's a parcel owned by Dreamcatcher Investment and another one owned by ACT Enterprises.
I think you need to be a little farther south, Gail. There. Yeah,
I think I'm looking at the right. Is that the tractors? That is. Yes. See that? Okay. Where's your cursor? Move to the left. Due west. Yes, that is the old. So in between Roosevelt Drive, on the east side of Roosevelt Drive. Yes, that's the old railroad grade. Right across those people's property, according to Scott Cooter. And it runs, and then to the east of that would be my guess. If I were going to be doing any type of extraction, I'd at least want to get it over to that railroad grade. And Jim, I don't know when that thing ran. I have no idea. I don't know. You can see the railroad grade down below. You can see it right there, the extension of it. Looks like a roadway.
You can also see right across the highway where it's actually still there.
Yeah, exactly.
It ran until about 1970, from the 20s till probably 70, and then they abandoned it all and took all the railroad tracks out. But there was a massive turnaround down at the Cannon Beach Junction, is where they turned the trains around and they went back. They had passenger trains into probably 1968, 67 that ran between Astoria and Portland. Well, they ran between Seaside. I'm so damn old that I actually rode them when I was a young man. Very young man.
Well, so I think that really kind of hones in where that site probably is. It makes it a lot easier for staff to go search it out. Much easier for staff to search it out.
Yeah, you might want to investigate that swath of land that is cleared across the diagonal swath. What is that? Is that an old roadbed for hauling gravel to the railroad? I don't know what that is. Why are there no trees there?
Somebody has it cleared for some reason.
Yeah, nothing grew back, which is weird. So, maybe that's the haul road to the railroad that they were using, and maybe the site is at the north end where all the lakes are, and that's the tailing ponds from all the gravel extraction.
Well, so I think we have something that we can research now, and that will help.
Awesome.
So we can't say for sure It says a 10-acre site within the shall be provided for gravel extraction. We can't say for sure, but we'll, be able to locate that, I think, a little bit better now. And it may be that policy 2 will go away.
All right, so we beat that horse. Let's look at policy 3.
Okay. So it's got 4 components. So the following requirements shall apply to wetland site 7, and 7 is, I believe, over in the Westport area. Yeah,
Oh.
because it says Driscoll Slough. So yes, that's over in the Westport area, Highway 30 toward the county line. So the following requirements shall apply to wetland site 7, which also contains whitetail deer habitat. Absolutely, yes. All industrial development shall be located north of the railroad right-of-way. The area between the railroad right-of-way and US Highway 30 shall be designated for protection of wetland characteristics. So that's your first one. And I can say, being a resident of East County, that yes, the area north of the railroad right-of-way is wet.
Julia, is there a reason why this particular group would be exploring this site?
Well, all of the committees are looking at all of the sites. I mean, it's just, I mean, we don't know who's got institutional knowledge where, and it's county-wide. So
Okay.
we thought that it was appropriate for everybody to look at everything, unless the committee doesn't want to. So the B is development of land adjacent to Driscoll Slough, which I think is showing up right there, shall be carried out in a way that will minimize the alteration of riparian vegetation, degradation of water quality, and stream sedimentation. Proposed development will be evaluated against the Department of Fish and Wildlife's management objectives of maintaining vegetative cover, particularly riparian vegetation, and the maintenance of corridors that provide for deer movement between habitat areas. Construction of a bridge or other transportation access across the slough shall be the minimum necessary to accomplish the project. Piling is preferred to filling for any access corridor across Driscoll Slough. So for those of you who are not as familiar with East County, this is a stone's throw, and much of this land is actually owned by Georgia Pacific. So this is the Wanna Mill area and just east of it. And then it goes into Tevan ownership, I believe. But this is very wet, and this I'm going to be pulling information regarding wildlife habitat here in the next couple of weeks. But this has historically been Colombian whitetail deer habitat, which is I believe listed species.
And that's the only place they're found?
The Columbia Gorge area, this lower area. So there's the Julia Butler wildlife habitat, which is in the nearby vicinity on an island, and in this area right in here. They used to be all through here, of course. Now their numbers are greatly reduced. I will know more once I get information back from the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife about what the numbers are and where they are, but this is their historic area.
And does Georgia Pacific feel like and Tevan Brothers feel like they can get what they need on that land that's on the other side of the railroad tracks?
They have not, nobody, as far as I know, they've all got their sites that they're using, and they have not expanded their boundaries of operation that really particularly. I mean, there's new stuff going on the Wanna Mill site from time to time, but they have not expanded into the wetlands, and they have not asked for any permits or anything they mostly are more concerned about the upkeep of what they've already got developed. Teven is working along the shoreland and but right at their mills, right at their site.
So it's basically Teven and then Georgia Pacific on that swath of land with the Driscoll Slough. And
yeah, I mean, there's some other ownerships in there too.
Yeah, Uoma a little bit, I guess, and some other stuff.
Yeah, you can see Georgia Pacific Consumer.
Yeah, I see it.
Teven, right, there we go.
Teven has been trying for years to get better access instead of using the county road, the ferry landing road. They've been trying for years to get an access to Highway 30 to his stockpile site, and he's been basically shut down in every turn that he's trying to do. So that's.
Well, wait a minute. We have an update. We have an update about that.
Oh, you.
Yeah, the public works folks, you know, we're in the process of developing a park with a boat ramp. As long as I understand what I'm looking at, do you know, where's the ferry site here? Where?
Right
there, right there.
Okay, so that's where we're putting in a park, as I say, with a boat landing, to the east of the ferry site, and to the west, Teven has just, through a grant from the Marine Board, has built a pier, and because we were all very, very nervous about using the road to the ferry, by the Teven trucks, our public works guys have now designed another road that would come off of Route 30 and go directly to the Teven site without encroaching on the ferry road. And I mean, we just talked about that at a work session within the last month or two. And I think that the county is negotiating with Teven, and there's a very long, thin strip of ownership that is right there, and they're negotiating now, and we've given them the go ahead to engineer and estimate the cost of building that road.
Okay, the only thing I'm saying is he's been trying to do this for years, and the division, he hasn't he got past the Division of State Lands, which is, and I'm sure they're still working on it, but with the county's help, I'm sure it'll be easier to get it through. But I know Sean.
I think that's a done deal. I think Jim, that the use of the site as a staging area for their barge. That's what they're trying to hook up to a barge site there.
Right, and he's had that approval for years.
Yeah,
Maybe.
Yeah. So I think we're real close. I mean, I think we're very close actually, to getting approval for an alternate road.
Okay, cool.
So that, yeah, I think that's it. Do we, Gail, did I hear you say that you were working with what, ODF&W about whether or not the deer population is still there?
Yes, that's actually Julia who stated that, and so she can talk more about that.
Yes, so I'll be obtaining information from the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife on a variety of topics. I'm also looking for heron rookeries and bald eagle sites and anything else that they've got. But absolutely, Columbia white-tailed deer are on the list of things I'll be pulling from them.
Okay, great.
So I guess then I'm back to the question. So development of land adjacent to Driscoll Slough shall be carried out in a way that will minimize alteration of riparian vegetation and degradation. And but we do have this project. So construction of a bridge or other transportation access across the slough shall be the minimum necessary to accomplish the project. But it sounds like those are things that will be addressed. C, industrial development on the eastern portion of the site shall be designed to minimize or avoid the removal of riparian vegetation along Westport Slough, and riparian vegetation removal shall be permitted where direct access to the water is required. And D, filling of the site shall not be permitted until a specific development proposal has been reviewed and approved by the county. So this starts to get really narrowed in, I think, on Driscoll Slough area specifically, and I think that's really more than Wanna Mill.
Filling the site. Well,
Yeah, anybody who's ever gone through that area during a high tide on a wintry wet day and looked off to the north knows that that is some pretty deep wetland through there. That is not someplace you want your car to go in, for example. You want to be careful. Anyway, how do you all feel about those policies?
Seem good to me.
Yeah, it seems reasonable. I mean, if you give, it looks like the industrial land is, there's a lot of that, and there's only that thin sliver of Driscoll Slough. So, I mean, why even bother getting in there if you've got all this other stuff on the north side of the tracks that you can use? And you're saying that that's not wet?
On the north side of the tracks?
Yeah.
This is a fill site from dredging, and they extract sand out of there, and that sand is continually being taken out of there, but they use that as a dredge spoil area.
I see. Yeah, it sounds reasonable to me.
Another thing I would just note is the heavy industrial site that is the Wanna Mill is the only heavy industrial zoning in the county. We have a little bit of light industrial zoning here and there, but that Wanna Mill site is the county's only heavy industrial zoning. We got a little light industrial in a couple of other places like Miles Crossing, and even then we don't have very much. But the Wanna Mill, this is it. That's that HI right there. That's their zoning, period.
That HI is theirs. Okay, there's a little bit of expansion if they want to, and
right, but you can see where it includes that wetland area. That wetland area is zoned HI.
That's true. Are you gonna maybe is part of this policy 3 to rezone that?
No, I think, yeah, you can see, so Gail's got it turned on, so you can see the zoning and you can see the wetlands. So I think when you're looking at A, B, C, and D here, what you're seeing is those are addressing that wetland area in that heavy industrial zone.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you think that's protected correctly, that's kind of the information I'm looking for. And I realize that you guys are not the Northeast area, but you bring a certain expertise, and so I'm still interested in what you think, frankly.
I want to know what kind of roadway they're going to approve over the top of that railroad grade, and then how they're going to get over the top of that. Is that even functioning anymore, or is that abandoned?
The rail line?
Yeah.
I believe that the sticking point on the railroad is Aldrich Point.
They still haul chemicals in and out of
Wanna.
Yes. Still
Yes.
active, still an active line to one.
So they'll just meet the grade and have a signal crossing there, and then they'll just cross, and they'll just go over the wetlands. They're just going to put a massive amount of fill in there then, with drainage structures and all that stuff to hold those big trucks. That'll be interesting. That'll be a cool project to see how they do that.
Well, I think, Mike, though, that the way they've designed it is that our public works people have gone to great lengths to traverse as few parcels as possible. And they have not mentioned to us that the route they have chosen is a wetland area. That would have gotten my attention, I think.
Yeah, there's only one route that I would see. It's just to the left of that cursor right there. There's a little piece where the railroad right away goes from 190 feet down to, that's minimum. Yeah, right there if you zoom in, and there's a Teven parcel that butts right up against it. Just, yeah, to the northwest a little bit there.
That's a little bit farther to the west is what they're proposing.
Yeah, if you keep going that way, well, it's hard to see, but there's a Teven parcel that, yeah, there it is. There's the little L shape right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I would cross.
I think that's where it is.
That might be dry.
I think it is. I really do. I think because they didn't mention anything about wetlands there.
Oh, cool.
There's wetlands.
Yeah, it kind of looks like it.
Yeah, it looks like, in fact, it stops conveniently at that other guy's property, which is all dry looking.
It's going to probably be handled through delineation and all that kind of stuff, and they're going to buy mitigation rights because it's a necessity. So it can be done.
Yeah. Trade credits with the Bonneville Power Administration.
Exactly.
Okay, are we happy with policy 3 discussion? Does anything else need to be commented on? I'm going to take that as a no. All right, where are we?
Well, you're on to natural areas policies, which I did not really have on your agenda this evening. We will in the future be moving into natural areas, water resources policies, wilderness areas. Historic sites actually is on for September, and cultural areas. So those are kind of the upcoming things. Did you want to look at any of the action items? Oh, Gail's got them up there. Anything in the Lewis and Clark only Woluski area that you wanted to kind of call out now that you've looked at wetlands elsewhere and sort of seen what we're looking at, and seen also some of the riparian areas? Are there anything in any areas in the Lewis and Clark only Woluski areas that you think ought to be called out? We've got pretty good coverage in the Miles Crossing, Jeffers Garden area. That's got the shoreland overlay, and significant wetlands are really pretty much already covered there. But what about farther inland? And is anybody aware of anything, I guess I should ask? Is there anything we should be adding? Is there anything we should be taking out? Or is this just food for thought?
What about the discussion on from a couple weeks ago with the county's new public works facility? Has that all been addressed, or is that not even wetlands over there?
There's wetlands over there, and what's ironic to me is a third of it's in the tsunami overlay too. So it's kind of funny. They're going to escape the tsunami, but a third of what they're doing is in the tsunami.
I mean, you guys are the county. What do you guys, is that anything you guys are going to address?
Gail, you want to talk to that?
Okay, so sorry, I was playing with the web maps, but So right now, the county is still in the process of doing all of its due diligence, and we're at the very first step. No decisions have been made yet on what we'll be purchasing. So we're going to be looking at wetlands. We're going to be looking at geologic hazards. We're going to be looking at getting a traffic impact analysis done. So all of those things. And but I do believe the question was specifically about looking at wetland areas, if I heard correctly.
I mean, my question is this is a project, right? So it's not really something for the Citizens Advisory Committee to address. It's really, I'm not going to say it's none of our business, but it's not going to roll into a long-term plan. It's already something you guys are making happen.
Well, it is something that actually was included in the comprehensive plan when we in their transportations in the transportation section, and there was recommendations for an alternate route. So
Yes.
Public Works has been discussing this for several years, and it is mentioned in the comprehensive plan and in the transportation system plans. So there is the ability, of course, you can weigh in on anything. Definitely, there are probably some things that are more appropriate. But given that this will basically be a land use issue, I think it would be very appropriate for the committee to offer their thoughts and recommendations.
Yeah, that's the only one I can really think about. I mean, Miles Crossing, you know, Jim has made it clear that we should be sticking our development up on the hill, up above Miles Crossing, which I tend to agree with him on that. But that's another story. I can't really think of a lot of places where there'd be industrial zoning and where people would be conflicting. I know no one wants to build down in the bottom of the river, and there's timberland at the top of the hill. Not a lot of options.
Well, as Dan Carey says, I would never build anything in Jeffers Gardens because it's all basically wetlands and you're just going to get in trouble. That's exactly what he told me. And of course, it's too long drawn out to get a goal exception to move anything up by the Lewis Clark School or any of that area. So that's just kind of a pipe dream, but that's where everything should move to, and there should be density credits, and you should be able to plop them up on the hill, but that's a long process.
Jim, could I ask you to clarify, do you back away from that because you think that just publicly it wouldn't pass muster?
I don't know that it would publicly pass muster, but you have to show need of necessity through the state of Oregon, and they'll, as they do in Warrenton, if there's a mass of developable land, whether it is wetlands or non-wetlands, they still have a tendency to have it as their wetlands inventory, so therefore they won't even consider it if there's a bunch of empty land somewhere.
Well, I guess I'm not as frightened about the state as you are, because I think that the Jeffers Gardens issue is something that this committee really needs to address head on. You know, we have public facilities there, as you know, we have the water district, and we have the fire and rescue guys who are dying to get out of the floodplain.
Correct, so, and we've got up next to the Lewis and Clark School. There's you know, it's all basically, it's all timberland. It's not basically timberland. It's all timberland. All the upland areas are all and there's roads, and we're within 1,000 feet of the sewer. There's water. In fact, the water district's reservoir is up there on that top of that hill.
Yeah, right next to your property, Jim.
And you're exactly right. I do own property there. And I said that the last time. I do agree. But so does Osmo, has a huge tract up there. And there's all sorts of other people too, Warla and everybody else. And you know, and doesn't matter who owns the property. I'm just talking about practicalities, and I don't care. I mean, I own a lot of Jeffers Gardens, and I'm in trouble every day of the week for doing anything in Jeffers Gardens, and frankly, I'm tired of it, and it's just such a hard nut to crack that it's ridiculous.
Well, let's work on it.
Okay?
Actually, well, Gail, with your permission or with yours, Mike, since I never run into Jim anymore, can I ask you, Jim, how the cleanup site at the old maritime facility on Lewis and Clark, are you all getting any repercussions in Jeffers Gardens about that?
At which site?
At the old marine building site up on the river.
AMCO.
No, I don't know much about that. It's just
no. I just wonder if you were getting any negative vibes from anybody about the truck waste or anything like that.
No, not that I know of.
Good, thank you.
All right. So, anybody have any other thoughts on wetlands in the Lewis on the Elk Cow region? Anybody got anything? I don't. All right. Staff, what do you think?
Well, another person has joined you, someone who's Anna's local resident. And if you're pretty much through with the wetlands riparians section of the agenda, we won't bother to go into watersheds and groundwater resources. That's going to come up later. You could ask for public comment and input in case the local resident would like to say something.
Sure. Now's the time. If anyone has any comments. Going once. All right. So let's talk about meeting times.
I have you down for the next meeting being September 24th at 6 p.m.
Perfect. Is everybody good with that?
I'm fine.
Jim, you like 6?
Yes, that's fine. Yes.
I like 6 too. Okay. 6 it is. So you'll send out some comments and some links to stuff, and that's going to be really awesome.
Yeah, your agenda for then is going to be hang on a second here, cultural and historic sites, and Gail is going to put some materials together for that, and I will be getting you all your agenda materials out. I will be gone during that period. I won't be here that week, but I will send everything out, get everything set up so that you can just continue on and you won't even know I'm gone.
But Julia, we'll miss your puns.
That terrible pun, yes. My terrible, terrible pun.
Hey, Gail, when you're going to talk about cultural sites, are you going to address the Tongue Point graded roadbed?
I had not put that one on my list. What specific concern or what would you like me to talk about with?
Well, I'm curious because one of my clients was trying to throw a subdivision up on the hill there above the parking lot at Tongue Point, and the state got wind of this roadbed, this historical roadbed built by the Navy, and I think that there was some talk amongst the feds and the state to evaluate it for archaeological, shards of whatever it may be, or occupation or other things like that. And then they were thinking about entering the process where they're going to turn that roadbed into a historical something or another. I don't know what the terminology is, but it's at the state level.
Is this
it might even be at the federal level too.
I think this is in the urban growth boundary for Astoria, but we actually have a meeting set up with the new development director for Astoria on September 11th, so she may also have some additional knowledge.
Oh, that's a good point. It's not under your jurisdiction. Okay.
Yeah, it's in the city limits. It's in the city limits, and I happen to own it.
It is. I forgot.
And I happen to own it. Full disclosure.
Well, I know what part you own, but what about the part that goes out through, you know, the Blue Ridge out that way? That's the one that they're talking about. I don't think they want to turn your piece that goes down to the docks into a because there's just asphalt there. We're talking that concrete roadbed. They're really hot to that thing. Isn't that crazy? You know where I'm talking about, right, Jim? It goes in front of Mike Benesh's property, and
That's the old state highway right of way. The issue is when you get to the Crest Motel, the highway used to go straight and up, and the portion that goes to the right past the Crest Motel has no ownership, just like the other one. It was never a clear deed to any of it, like the other one.
well, that's true. That's exactly true. But you may not know this, but the state and the feds want to turn that concrete roadbed that winds its way along the bluff there into a national historic something. At least they did last year. That's what they said officially.
Okay, I've been told they want to do something with mine, and that's a big issue right now. We're in negotiations for a trade, so. You know.
I bet. You're right in the hot seat there.
Yep. I'm in the hot seat no matter where it is in this county, trust me. Crown Main Line, that, Jeffers Gardens, I'm in trouble or in the hot seat, either one.
Well, someone's got to do it.
That's a fact.
All right, enough of that. All right, maybe those were closing comments. Does anyone have staff? Any closing comments? Pamela? No.
I don't think so. Thank you very much.
Staff has nothing for you unless there's some other questions that you have.
Nope. All right, well, look at this, 7:22. Oh, we did good. All right, I'm going to call this meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
All right. Very good. Thank you, everyone.